Good Tuesday morning to you. This is Pastor Mark Pierce of Church Requel, and we're back with another Bible study. Today we want to continue to take a look at this idea of the road being closed for those of us who are married in terms of having sexual relationships outside of the bounds of marriage. Today, let's take our Bible and turn to Matthew chapter 5 and read verses 27 and 28. Matthew 5, 27 and 28. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Now, yesterday we got into just a little bit about the definition of adultery, and I certainly didn't want to leave anyone with the idea that adultery was okay for the man and not okay for the woman. Certainly our modern definition of adultery, I think, is a good one, and that is that neither the man nor the woman should ever have a sexual relationship outside of the bounds of his marriage with his wife or with her husband. But in Jesus' day, this was something that, frankly, wasn't always as fairly looked upon. The man oftentimes, as we'll see here as we move on, was given a much more leeway, and the woman was often charged with adultery, possibly even stoned to death. So for Jesus then to come to this point where he says, but I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent, in other words, he's saying, I'm going to broaden this. I'm going to actually approach this from the man's standpoint. Not only am I saying adultery is wrong, I'm saying to you, all of you men who would look lustfully or with lustful intent at a woman, that you've already committed adultery. You have already gone there inside of your heart. Now, again, just to understand a little bit, this is not the idea that you happen to see a beautiful woman. You know, God has made us guys in a certain way, and I think it's just, you know, it would be wrong of us to say that there just aren't times that even a good, faithful, Christ-following man, you know, glances up and sees a beautiful woman, doesn't somehow in his mind say, wow, look at that. I mean, that happens, and if I've just lost anyone along the way, well, hey, I'm sorry about that. I am simply admitting that there is something that is hardwired into us guys that appreciates, you know, a woman's beauty. That's what it means. But that's not what's being talked about here. That's not the idea of looking at a woman with lustful intent. You see, this concept of looking is a present participle continuous action. By that I mean I am looking and I am continuing to look. And this really, if we want to get right down to it, and forgive me for just being brash about this or for being out there about this, but really what this means is that I look at a woman and I undress her in my mind. That's what it's talking about. It's this idea not just of, in fact, there are going to be times, frankly, men, where a woman could possibly, you know, come along and purposefully try to attract you. They may dress inappropriately or, you know, really come on to you, actually try hard to get you to do something that would be wrong. And honestly, I don't want to just be sexist about this, because while we're reading about the first century, this is the 21st century that we're into now. And I suppose the same thing could be true for a woman with a man. But this idea of looking with lust and lusting and continuing to lust has this idea of not the first look, but the continuous look. It's not a matter that you will be tempted, because you will be tempted. There is nothing here that says that temptation isn't going to come your way. Temptation itself is not a sin. There is going to be times where I, as a married man, am going to be tempted to look at a woman in an inappropriate way. What has to happen, though, is right here, road closed. Somewhere in my head, I have got to have a barrier that flips up that says, oh, wait a minute, this is not the way that God has made me. This is not what God has created me for. God has given me a beautiful woman. He has given me my wife, and I reserve myself. I save myself for her, and she does the same for me. So that not only will I not commit adultery with another woman, I won't even go there in my mind. That's what Jesus is saying here. Let the road be closed. Not that you can somehow see how close that you can get in terms of your talk, in terms of your thinking, in terms of your eyes, in terms of your looking. He's saying, hey, let's shut the road down before you ever get there. When you have that first lustful thought, shut it down. Look the other way. Get your mind on something else. Don't dwell there. Don't stay there. I've got a lot more to tell you about this, and so does Jesus too, by the way, as we move on, because he's got some practical advice, and we want to take a look at that when we get together on Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to another Bible study with you real soon.